Welcome to the Thoughtful Leader podcast. My name is Ben Brearley. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of Thoughtful Leader. The Thoughtful Leader podcast is all about short, sharp leadership advice because thoughtful leadership is good leadership. Welcome to episode 341 of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. In this episode, I'm going to leave you with 4 good questions to uncover your values. Now, these are quite easy ones you can do in a notepad on your computer to reflect on them. So let's get into these right now. Right, so sometimes I've come across leadership courses and training where we do some values exercises. And what these usually look like is things like, I'm going to give you a big list of 50 values, and I'm just going to get you to circle the ones that are your strongest ones. And that's it. That's where it ends. So I just tick, oh yeah, family is my strongest one. Okay. World peace, that's another one. The problem with just giving people a big list of values and telling them to tick the ones that really matter to them is that it's just based on our logical brain, or perhaps the emotional response we get from reading the words. So we might look at the words and go, oh yeah, world peace, I love that. It's one of my strongest values. Now, is it really one of your strongest values, or is it just sounds good because we want to be seen as liking world peace? So what I want to do today is give you a few good questions to help you uncover your values. And I do have some resources for this, by the way. So the show notes for this episode is thoughtfulleader.com/podcast/341. So I'd encourage you to go to that page. I'm going to leave 2 resources for you there when it comes to understanding your values, in addition to the questions I'm going to give you today. The first one is my Useful Values Journal, which is a digital PDF journal. You can download it for free from that show notes page. There's no need to enter your email or anything. You can just click the link, you'll get the PDF. The second resource is my Understand Your Values online course. Now, if you use the coupon code TLValues, all capitals, you'll get a discount on that as well. So if you want to use the online course to be guided through the process of values discovery, you can use the online course. If you want to use the journal to reflect yourself on your values that way, I'd recommend that as well. So those options are there for you. But let's look at some good questions to help you uncover your values. So the first question I want you to answer or consider is, think of a moment when you were really proud in your life. What about that moment made you proud? And then, what value do you think might have been fulfilled in that moment? So I'll give you my own example of this one. So when I was around 23 years old, I moved to Sydney in Australia for 3 or 4 years. And I was quite homesick during that time. And I actually, became really miserable for that time in my life. And I was quite young. And I moved back to my hometown of Perth after that. But I was always a bit worried that I don't want to be the sort of person who can't move somewhere or live by myself overseas or elsewhere and enjoy themselves. So I actually ended up studying in China for about a year in total, where I didn't know anyone, and I went over there. Now I'm really proud that I did that. And I went over there, I made some friends, I had a really good experience in China learning Mandarin and that sort of thing. And the reason I'm proud of that, the thing underlying that, is because it meant I was a bit more self-reliant. I did it myself. I was able to rely on myself to carve out an experience over there that I really enjoyed. And so that's what made me proud. So I think self-reliance is one of the strongest values that came out of that. So that question again, think of a moment you were really proud. What exactly about it made you proud? And what value do you think sits underneath that moment? And by the way, I'll also put a link in the show notes page to a big list of values, although you can see them in the Useful Values Journal as well. So I reckon you should use that one if you can. All right, the second question I want to leave you with here is, think of a moment you were really frustrated or angry. What about the moment made you feel that way specifically? And what value do you think was being compromised at that moment? Because what often happens with an angry response, you'll get a value that's being sort of, a boundary is being crossed, or, your value is being trodden on or stepped on. Whereas in the proud moment question, usually a value is being fulfilled, which makes you feel proud. So the frustrated or angry moment is all about a boundary being transgressed, for example. And so one of my examples for this one, I would say, I used to have a friend who was very judgmental and would always share these strong opinions on various things. And I found after a while, I didn't really enjoy that. I didn't like the judgmental nature of the comments. And it was quite a tense environment. And I think I put that down to the lack of consideration, and actually acceptance was the value under there that I think was being transgressed, in terms of, I don't think this person was being accepting of other people and is being very judgmental. So that made me really frustrated and angry. So acceptance was the value there for me that was being trodden on at that time. So question number 3. Think of a time in your life where everything was really going well, like things were just amazing for you. What were the conditions at that time? And which of your values do you think were being fulfilled in that moment? So you might say something like, well, I was studying at the time. My family life was really good. Everything was really good. I had a great group of friends around me. And you might find that, okay, friendship was the real thing that was being fulfilled, or I was fulfilled because I was learning so much, and learning is one of my core values. So think about that time. What was in place and what value might have been being fulfilled in that moment? And that's a really good question to use. Now, the fourth question, the final question I'll leave you with, is think about someone you really admire. Now, what exactly about them do you admire? And be specific. And then I want you to think about, what value might that represent? So you might admire someone like, okay, let's say, I really admire Richard Branson because he's dyslexic and he had all these challenges growing up, and he wasn't like an academic, sort of an academic type of person, but he became really good in business because he had great ability to build relationships, and he had great people skills, for examples, and he was very ambitious. So you might say, okay, the value underlying that for me is resilience. I admire that he was resilient in the face of all these challenges and able to build a great business career. So that might be one for you. And so that's sort of the example I'm thinking about there. So these are the really good questions. It was proud moment, frustrated or angry moment, when life was really good moments, and someone you admire. These are all great examples for you to reflect on that tell you a lot about your own values. And you might notice that some of the questions provoke more than one value, and that's cool as well. What I generally recommend is to have a list of 5 to 7 values that really you think represent what you believe in. And then what I recommend after you have those values is to refine them over time, reflect on them. And you can use my useful values journal, which was in the show notes page, to do that as well. You can reflect on your values. If something happens at work or at home and you have a strong emotional reaction, reflect on that value. Think about, what happened there? What was the value that was being attacked? And I actually will leave a link in the show notes page as well. I sometimes write articles on my own personal website, which is benbrearley.com, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But I wrote one specifically a few weeks back about an example of where I was playing basketball and someone on the other team accused me of being a dirty player. And my reaction was quite strong, and I was quite interested. And I did a bit of a reflective essay on that, what my reaction was and why that might have been according to my values. So I'll put a link to that article in the show notes page. It's quite interesting. And I actually really love the self-reflection and thinking about my own values. And I think it's really instructive because it helps you understand more about how you see yourself and what you believe in. And that means you can craft a life and you can lead in a way that aligns with what you believe in. And generally, people who do that are going to feel more comfortable, confident, and content. Okay, so let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments. What do you think of these questions? And do you have any extra questions you would add as well? Put a comment on Spotify, go to the show notes page, thoughtfleader.com/podcast/341 and let me know. Remember to check out the resources, which is the online course or my Useful Values journal. I recommend both of those highly. The journal is free. The course costs a little bit of money, but of course, don't forget to use that code TLValues to get your discount on the course as well. Thank you very much for listening once again. If you like this podcast or this episode, I'd love for you to leave a positive review on your app of choice. It really helps me get the word out about the podcast and helps other leaders find it. So please do that if you have a minute. Okay. Thank you again. Keep up the thoughtful leadership as usual, and I'll be back next week.